Good afternoon and welcome to CEC group lecture. In the continuation with the series on sociological theories, in today's lecture we are going to discuss the functional theories, the functional theory in sociology. So we are going to understand what is functional theory, what is the key concepts used in functional theory, and then look into the work of Durkheim, Parson and Merton. And then, if time permits, we'll look into the criticism of functional theory and the emergence of neo-functionalism. So, to begin with, we are aware that functional theory is a sociological perspective. And what does this perspective do? It views society as a complex system made up of interdependent parts that work together to maintain stability and order. So, the whole idea was to look into the way in which society is integrated and interdependent, and this integration and interdependence can lead to stability and order. So, it was the application of a positivist theory where the society was assumed to be in equilibrium and social order, and there was a negation of idea of conflict. So, within the functionalist perspective, a number of concepts have been used, and these have been used by the thinkers and scholars to help us focus on the ways in which different parts function to maintain the whole. So, functionalists are also using the term functions. Functions in the sense these are kind of considered as positive contribution of the parts to the whole. But at the same time, they also have talked about dysfunctional. So, dysfunctional would be the facts that could bring about a negative impact. So, this comes in later, will come in only after Parson, that is Robert Merton, talks about the function and dysfunction. In the beginning of the emergence of the discipline, most of the sociologists were talking only about the functions of society. So, elements of a society are functional if they contribute to social stability. So, as discussed earlier, the focus was to ensure how the increasing disability disorder was restored back to normalcy. So, those who were kind of looking into society as an integrated whole, they said that if the society's parts are not functioning properly, then they are kind of dysfunctional, they are disrupting social stability. Some aspect of society can be both functional and dysfunctional. For example, if you look into crime can be dysfunctional as well as functional. Dysfunctional because it could lead to kind of a lot of disorder, it could lead to violence, whereas Durkheim would say that the crime could be functional because it also helps you to become aware or conscious about the break of the integrity of the society. So, it could bind society together and increase integration of the society. When we look into the function and dysfunction, the another concept which Merton used was manifest and latent. Now, manifest means what is appearing, what is apparent. So, that is something, when we are talking about function, certain functions are visible. We know that this is the function of the institution. For instance, we know that for education, the function of education is to impart knowledge, is to impart certain skills, certain kind of identity which becomes relevant when one goes to have apply for a job market. But if we look into, say, the way in which education has been used for social program or for doing away with certain inequality in society, education could also be a kind of a point of upliftment, or it could be also related to the health and nutrition of children. So, if we look into the midday meal scheme of the government, then education is not only going to schools for knowledge or to enhance your understanding, but also to ensure that you get a meal especially for children belonging to the poor community who are not able to get the right nutrition. So the manifest function is what is visible, what is obvious in terms of education, schools providing certain knowledge and skills. But the latent is the hidden or unintended consequences. So the idea is that every institution or every part could have both, and the task of the sociologist is not only be to explain what is visible, but go behind the screen and explain the unhidden and the unintended consequences. Along with the concept of function, the second concept which is very central to functionalism or functional theory is norms. Now, norms are unwritten norms, written rules, that is certain kind of expectations which arises out of a majority, where the majority agrees to certain way of functioning of the society and it gets legitimized by the majority of the people or by average of the society, then it kind of considered as unwritten rule. And the unwritten rule could be informal, so in terms of how the women should dress or how children should speak to elders, or how even you kind of bodily behavior in front of anybody could be a part of your unwritten informal norms. But norms can also be formal, that is the legal norms or the laws. But they are basically seen by functionalists as positive, something that enables the individual to regulate the behavior, to kind of structure the behavior in society, and that kind of norms kind of seen as functional by giving an order to society, or else there would be chaos. Norms also play important role in maintaining social cohesion. So the fact that it is something which is legitimized by the society, majority of the people would go by a particular norm, so there is a kind of cohesion. And if there is a kind of deviance or there is kind of rejection of the norm, then it is kind of seen as affecting the level of order and cohesion. So the individual understand that there is a certain societal expectation, and every norms will tell us that this is what the society would expect, and we follow these uncritical without questioning because we consider it as legitimate. But many a time certain norms could kind of create certain kind of inequalities, certain kind of violence and their exploitation. These are the point when these norms get started questioning and people kind of reject them and develop new one. And third important concept in functionalism, which comes in more from anthropology, is culture. Now, according to Malinowski, who is an anthropologist and using the functional perspective, it is kind of an instrumental apparatus. Why is he calling it as instrumental apparatus? Because he is kind of forcing culture as having certain positive role. The role of fulfilling the needs, the biological needs in society, and therefore enable society to develop a synergetic relationship with the environment, which is the context in which the biological needs can be fulfilled. Culture is a system of object, activities and attitude in which every part exists as a mean to an end. It is integral to which the various elements are interdependent, So culture could also kind of use synonymous to society or synonymous to a social system. It's the larger whole, which consists of different parts like education, the economic system of norms, control, knowledge, beliefs. These are all parts which together makes the culture. So these are some of the key concepts, functions, dysfunctions, norms that we kind of know to be central in understanding functional theory. Now let us look into the contribution of some of the key figures and sociologists who are associated with the functional theory. So the first is Emil Durkheim. Now Emil Durkheim was also kind of looking into the significance of certain institutions in society that would play a dominant role in maintaining the collective consciousness, or institutions that had an integrative role in society. So we read from his text published in 1895, page 123, where he says that each sociological explanation consists of two parts. One is to explain a social phenomena, the efficient cause which produces it, and two, the function it fulfills has to be understood separately. So if we were to understand society, we need to understand the cause, why that particular phenomena is happening, and two, what function it is fulfilling in society. So functional implied the contribution that part makes to society in establishment of general harmony. Durkheim applied this general framework of harmony and integration in studying, say, the division of labor, studying religion, and to understand moral order in society. He was basically interested in understanding how society works together to maintain social order. And to recall that, remember, there was large-scale transformation due to industrialization, urbanization, and there was a disorder in society. So the aim was to kind of see whether society could function in a manner to bring back order. So Durkheim stated that society provides individuals with a sense of social solidarity through all institutions in a given society. This social solidarity serves as a social glue. So this is the solidarity or the network that individuals have in a society, which is called a collective, could play a significant role in bringing back order in society. Durkheim believed that having a sense of belongingness is very important. The moment we have a sense of belongingness, which is the collective consciousness, then we will give up our individual interest, we will give up our individual desire and work more for the society. And the more we think about the society as a whole, the disorder or disintegration or anomie, which is kind of the break in the relationship between individual and society, would decline. So Durkheim was emphasizing on society, the relationship of society and social solidarity. The second important functional theory was given by Talcott Parsons. Talcott Parsons revises the traditional functional theory and at the same time would use the organic analogy for understanding the relationship between part and whole. For Parsons, society is like a human body. So both have working parts that achieve an overarching group. So just as we see in any organism, or for that matter human body, which has several organs, so the heart, the brain, and the liver, and each has its work, and each can function only when the other organ is working. They're dependent on each other. So he's saying the society is also like an organism consisting of different organs which are kind of related and interdependent to each other in order to ensure social solidarity. So each social institution, according to Talcott Parsons, is an organ in the society, and each organ has been assigned a specific role, specific function. If it does not fulfill that specific function, it will lead to disorder. And all the institutions that are there in society, where we call about education, economy, polity, they all work in relation to each other. It's kind of a network, and each one of them would work together for maintaining an equilibrium in society. Talcott Parsons gave us the 4 needs of society. He saw society as a system with certain needs that must be met if the body is to function properly. So, just as an organic body has certain needs, and those needs have to be done has to be fulfilled for it to function. Similarly, society has these needs, and he classifies them into 4 essential needs, which is also known as the AGIL model. The AGIL is the first alphabet of the 4 needs identified by Talcott Parsons. The first need that he talks about is a biological need, which is termed as adaptation. So, adaptation is the need in order to kind of make a synergy with the environment, in order to kind of meet the basic necessity or the basic needs of food, shelter. So, we need to kind of have a healthy relationship with the environment to fulfill this. The second is the goal attainment. Now, the goal is that every society has identified certain goals, and the culture would function in a manner to ensure that the goals are achieved by all the members. And how the goals we achieve, there has to be a distribution of the resources available. And who would do this state? It could be the political institution and social policy, which would do a redistribution of resources and allocation. The third is integration. Integration implies that each of the parts which are different, they are different because they have a different functions to play. Their structure is different. So, structurally, functionally, they are different, but each of them has to play the similar role in maintaining the society as integrated. So, integration is basically adjustment of conflict or kind of compromising differences and giving more significance to cooperation. So, if we were to ensure cooperation, norms and values and embedded law becomes important. One of the functions of norms is to ensure that a majority of them agree to the particular value system, and that leads to integration. The fourth is latency, or he talks about pattern maintenance, that each of the society will have a kind of structure, and each of the structure will have a function to play, but this structure cannot be haphazard, or it cannot be kind of dependent on situation. A pattern has to be maintained in order to ensure that the structure is retained and functions are fulfilled. Now, this pattern maintenance is basically talking about institutionalization of norms and value. So, several institutions help to maintain a pattern of basic values such as religion, education, judiciary, and the family. So, all the 4 functions, that is adaptation, goal attainment, integration, and latency or pattern maintenance, help us to understand how a state of balance, that is equilibrium, emerges in a system. AGIL function, or the way in which he talks about, is first identifies these functions and then says that each of these functions can be assigned to a subsystem, and that is how the system functions. So, the biological organism or the first role, which is adaptation, is basically by and large fulfilled by the economy. The function of goal attainment is the part of the personality system. How, or we can say the polity, how there is an integration of the norms and values of the society in order to maintain the goal, and how the polity or the policy redistributes resources to ensure that there is a kind of the capacity of everybody to have a goal attainment. The integration function is performed by the social system or it is the community. Here he would refer to Tony's Gesellschaft and Gemeinschaft, where Gesellschaft was moving away from community to institution. So the social system is also a collective, and only when there is a larger emphasis on the integration of the collective that there can be equilibrium and order in society. The fourth, which is the latency of pattern maintenance, is the function of the cultural system. Now, latency or the pattern maintenance is dependent on norms and value, and the norms and value is the purview of the culture. So, Talcott Parsons says that it is the task of what we call fiduciary system, which pertains to the nature of a trust or trusted. Now, if we look into Parsons' theory in terms of the goal attainment and subsystem, it can be said that Parsons' theory is a grand theory. Grand theory, why? Because it is all encompassing unified theory. Every society is supposed to have these universal functions, and all subsystems perform these tasks that has been identified. But his theory has been critiqued. There is a lot of assumption, there is a lot of neglect of conflict, there is less significance given to individual. So one of his students, Robert Merton, who gave us the concept of functions, dysfunctions, manifest and latent functions, has critiqued Talcott Parsons and argued that his theory is too general and not very much in use because it cannot deal with specific cases. Now, in place of grand theory, Robert Merton preferred for a mid-level theory. So, grand theory is a theory which would uniformly apply to all society under the assumption that there is very less cultural differences and the cultural specificity is not given significant. But when we look into the middle range theory, it will look into the specificity of every culture. It not only specificity of the larger whole, but also the specificity of smaller level phenomena, that is group, social mobility or role conflict. So, Merton abandons the search for any functional prerequisite that will be valid in all social systems. So, one of the key idea was to identify certain prerequisite, essential conditions which would be found in all society. So, his theory, which is a middle level theory, is also known as a strain theory. So, he saw crime as reaction to the lack of opportunity to achieve legitimate goals in society. Merton argued that American dream of a meritocratic society and equal society is a delusion. The structural organization of society prevents everyone from accessing the same opportunity and achieving the same goals due to their race, gender or class ethnicity. So, according to Robert Merton, anomie occurs due to an imbalance between individual goal and individual status, causing a strain. There is a strain between what has been your individual goal versus the opportunity that the society as a whole provides. So, he is the one who is also taking attention towards the conflict or towards the negative perspectives. So, if we look into the work of Durkheim, Parsons and Merton, we get a brief idea of what was the functional paradigm in America, Britain, and it was dominant in the 50s and 60s. But towards 1970s, its importance started declining and a lot of criticism of functional theory started appearing. And one of the basic criticism was by Marxist theory, who argued that society is not static. Social change is continuously taking place, and therefore this too much of emphasis on status quo is problematic. We need to see what are the structures that contribute to the change in status quo and conflict. So, it has also been criticized because it is giving disregard to historical process and its presupposition that societies are always in a state of equilibrium. So the functional theory in sociology has been termed as teleological and tautological. There is a constant relationship between cause and consequence, factors that lead to the change and how it will kind of again lead to certain causal relationship. It has been critiqued by the presence of an institution cannot precede institution's existence. Otherwise, a teleological argument would suggest that the institution's development anticipated its function. It has been criticized for circular, that one leads to the other and the other leads back. So, it's a circular relationship between part and whole, which is problematic. There could be a break in that circle. So, with this number of criticism, we kind of have another set of theories which will be taken up in the next class, that is the structuralism. So, with this idea of the development of functional theory, contribution and critique, we have understood functional theory in sociology. So we kind of come to an end of this lecture. Thank you.